Yet have been emailing us with concerns about plans to reassess people on incapacity benefits, a move that could see thousands losing benefits that they've received for years.
Yes, deciding whether someone's fit to work, from assessing a bad back to recognising a mental health problem, can be a complicated and an inexact science.
Simon Boseman has enlisted some help to put the government's new test to the test.
Take 3 sickness benefit claimants. Bad back, depressed, arm dysfunction? Are they so sick the state should pay them to stay at home, or do they simply need help getting back to work? Well, we're about to find out because the government has recently started testing 1.6 million sickness benefit claimants to see which camp they fall into.
But we've been contacted by viewers who've been assessed who don't think that the test is fair. And nearly 40% of new claimants who are unhappy with their decisions are successful if they appeal. So how do you tell if someone's actually fit for work and who's just trying it on?
The government assessment uses physical tests like picking up a pen from the floor and a questionnaire. But in the past, a family GP would assess your fitness to work. So to see if you'd reach the same conclusions as the government assessors, we asked Dr. Barbara Murray to examine our 3 claimants.
A 45-minute assessment, do you think that's enough?
I think they can only give an opinion based on the presentation on the day. And that's not to say that they're not being fair in their assessment on the day, but I just wonder whether sometimes they need to see people more than once and get to know them a little bit better. Mr. Hinks, room 5, please.
So let's start our tests. First up, meet former lifeguard Grant. Grant has been on sickness benefit for 2 years, due, he says, to a painful back condition.
If you keep your legs straight, I'm just going to raise it. Can you tell me if you get any pain when I'm doing that?
It's already started, it's there.
Now, if I start to lower your leg, does it ease off?
No.
OK.
Dr. Barbara doesn't know, but according to the government's assessment, Grant has only limited ability to work. So, will she agree?
Grant has limited ability to work.
How do you react to people who say that, people like yourselves are scroungers and you're just taking extra money?
Well, I've worked for the same company for over 20 years and I wanted to work full-time, but it was just my health deteriorated, so I couldn't physically do what I wanted to do. I mean, a lot of people still say there's nothing wrong when I'm putting it on, but just look at the medical records and that proves everything.
Mr. Heath, room 5, please.
Next up is John.
Can you just tell me what's been happening with you?
John worked as a freelance IT systems analyst for 40 years.
I've got no forward motion.
No, so like moving a mouse.
Well, I make trick movements, so I do that.
Right.
He's a new claimant to sickness benefit after losing the use of his right arm last year, which he says leaves him in constant pain.
Is that tender?
No, that's okay.
That's okay. Has it affected your balance a bit?
Yes, I would say it has, yeah.
John wrote to us saying he's unhappy with the government's decision that he's fit for work. But what's Dr. Barbara's verdict?
John is unfit for work.
John, when they told you were fit to work, how did you react to that?
Absolutely outraged, and I couldn't understand how they could come to that conclusion. It just wasn't logical.
Our last volunteer is Natalie.
Miss Tester, room 5, please.
Natalie is a long-term claimant of sickness benefit, having not worked since 2002 due to depression.
So you must have been quite bad, were you, previously?
I asked my mum to section me a few times.
What about things like your concentration?
I've got a short concentration span.
Have you worked in the past?
Last time I worked was before I had my first child.
Right. What did you do?
I worked in KFC. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be a photographer.
You want to be a photographer?
Natalie was passed fit for work following her recent government assessment. So has Dr. Barbara reached the same conclusion?
Natalie is fit for work.
Being past fit for work means you lose your sickness benefit and move on to the lower paid job seekers allowance. On the plus side though, claimants should be given help and support to find work. Natalie sees this as a positive thing.
We were a push to be pushed off it, because that's what it felt like, but in the same breath it was still a good thing, because I want to make better things, and you can't do that while you're on sickness benefit.
Dr. Barbara didn't completely agree with the government assessors.
Now, our test isn't scientific by any means, but it does go some way to show just how difficult it is to work out if someone's fit for work.
The Department for Work and Pensions told us that they are introducing new measures that will ultimately result in fewer decisions going to appeal and leave more people like Natalie happy with the system.
I'll get there eventually. Might not be tomorrow, might not be next month, but it eventually will come. When it does, I'll be ready.
Well, thanks ever so much for that, Simon. The Department for Work and Pensions has told us that while almost 40% of people who appeal against their decisions win, that only represents 6% of all new claimants, and improvements to their assessments should reduce appeals in future.
Yeah. Now, Rebecca, you've not suffered on the same scale as the people we saw there in the film, but you have talked quite openly, really, about your experiences with mental health, haven't you?
Well, I get claustrophobia and have had most of my life, which, you know, doesn't really qualify as a mental illness. It's just an inconvenience as far as I'm concerned.
Course.
But I'm a patron of a charity called Anxiety UK, and I do a bit of work with Mind. And I know that a lot of their members are really, really worried about these reassessments, because it's very, very difficult to just use a task-based assessment to quantify whether somebody is ill enough to go to work.
Has it affected your claustrophobia? Has it affected you in your work?
It hasn't, thank goodness. No, I adore my work, and I'm a bit of a workaholic, so actually I've never allowed it to. I've sort of managed to minimise it. Right. But it's a nuisance. I'm very good at walking upstairs.
Well, it gives you toned legs, Rebecca.
Absolutely, that's why I do it.
Yeah. Well, this is a subject that we will return to, and if you do want to let us know your feelings on it, then you can email us at the usual address.
Yes.